I'm super excited to welcome SARA SPEICHER. She's a mom like me. She's a writer. She's an international elite athlete as well. And she turned master life coach, quantum strategist, mindset expert, and she helps visionary women in leadership. So welcome, Sarah. We're so excited to have you here.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are.
Yes. Yeah, yesterday we asked everybody where they're from, and we had from all over the world. So yes, worldwide here, and even the experts too, they're from all over. So welcome, Sarah. We're super excited to hear about, this intentional aligned action. And I don't know if you want to share with us maybe a little personal story of how this has supported you in achieving what you want, and then I'll ask you some questions so we can support everybody.
Whichever works for you. I can talk about it for days. If anybody's for days, we can totally do that.
Yeah, every time we have a conversation, we're like, we can keep talking for hours. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, first and foremost, it's SPEICHER. I just want to make sure it's not my last name. It took me forever to debate with my husband how to pronounce the way it's spelled, but he won. So
SARA SPEICHER. That makes sense. Yeah. And for me, it's super hard because it's like English and Spanish. So sometimes I say it's Spanish way. So thank you for correcting me.
You're welcome. Like I said, it took me a while to get used to it. So speaking of aligned actions, right? It's not always what's easy. It's not always what's the most obvious.
Yes.
So yeah, my story. Well, it's so interesting because we're talking about action, and action taking actually is my middle name. Yeah. I really take a great pride in one of my mentors once said, "Oh my gosh, you take action like a boss. I have never seen anybody be such a quick start," even though quick start is not even, if you're familiar with DISC and Colby assessments, it's not even in there for me, for my personality. But yeah, taking actions, something that I believe is what really separates you from, yes, being a visionary. You can do all the amazing things, but when you see things through is what makes a difference. But how you see them through is making even a bigger difference. And I know I went out on a tangent right now. So let me backtrack and go to the beginning. So my accent is from Europe, from Slovenia, a small medieval town of about 20,000. I played basketball for many years, and then I decided I was done. I needed a break from playing for a national team, being a captain of a national team, playing for a couple of levels at our club team, playing for my high school. I used to have like 5 to 6 practices a week and 3 games per weekend for years nonstop. So at one point, I was like, I just need to take a break, and I wanted to focus on my studies as I was transitioning from high school to university. And then all of a sudden, I got this email that says, "Hey, would you consider coming to New York? We would love to have you on our team." And I'm like, no. Where did you find me? No, not at all. As you know, I already said, I was so excited about starting a new life as now a retired player and getting to normal things that the rest of the teenagers were doing. Well, long story short, my mom found me as I was just about to answer the email with a quick, short, "No, thank you." I was like, "What are you doing?" And I said to her, and she goes, "Well, at least go give it a try. If you don't like it, you can always come back." And that was kind of the phrase that really caught me off guard, but it got so deeply ingrained that taking risks, that was the biggest risk I have taken up to that point. And it was also the most rewarding in hindsight. Leaving my family, leaving my culture, leaving my home behind to move across the Atlantic on my own, barely speaking any English, to start a brand new life on a campus I have never visited before. I have only met coach once for like a few hours, and that was it. Yeah, it did not make any sense in many views. It was a huge risk. It was a huge sacrifice, but it was also in complete alignment with the dream that I had as a little kid. I have a stack of postcards here. They belong to my grandmother, and her brother sent them to her from around the world. He was a sailor. And I remember going through those postcards with my grandma, and I was like, one day I would love to visit New York, and I would love to live in New York. But it was like a 5-year-old kid's dreams that never thought about them again. It was aligned because I ended up in New York, not the way I thought it would be. I even wanted to say no because there's so many logical explanations why not to. But yet it was in alignment with this deepest, the most innocent desire, the most soul-aligned desire that I spoke into words so many years prior to that. And the reason why I'm sharing this, and we can go into so many other examples that are more relevant to a business owner, to, I assume many of us here are parents. And I would dare to say that all of us are here because what we're creating, we want to outlive us. We want to make the world a better place. We want to change the world with our gifts, with our products, with our services. So taking action is not always going to be this easy peasy, straightforward thing that, no offense, but the spiritual community tends to wrap it up into just feel good thing. You know, you feel good and everything comes to you. Taking aligned actions oftentimes feels like biking uphill. And feels like, oh my gosh, I'm just about to die right now.
Yes.
And this is where the awareness also comes in, which you have talked about at the beginning of this series. Being aware of the resistance and knowing that the resistance sometimes it's not even about the action you're about to take, but about the perception of what's awaiting for you on the other side. So be aware, be mindful, and be really curious about what is coming up. And later on, I'm happy to share with you just a couple of tactical stuff that I apply all the time when I get to the crossroads of, I really don't want to do this, but it's the way to go.
Yes. And I love that you're sharing. Well, first, I forgot to mention that you're the founder of Make Your Life Your Legacy too. So, which is, you know, in part of what you're sharing. And I think it's beautiful because we all are here. I think we want to achieve things for ourselves, but I think we're also just human nature. We're very generous and giving, and we want to give to others. So I think everybody has a pretty big heart and wants to give the best of themselves and leave the world a better place than you found it. So I love like what you're sharing, you know, make your life your legacy. And I like too that you're sharing about this taking action and all these risks. And to me, I'm listening to you say, like, you know, like what your mom told you, try. What's the worst that can happen? Try. And I use that all the time, even with my kite surfing and my surfing. I'm like, oh, the waves are too big. Just try. If you don't make it out and get washed back at the beach, okay, maybe today's not the day for me. But it can be applied to life too. Like, you don't know until you try. And I know it can be very scary and uncertain, especially if we're going after something that's really big, something that we've never done before. But it's just taking that one small step. And the crucial thing too about taking action is that you start to get feedback, right? So like a lot of times there's a coach, her name's Marie Forleo, she coaches like business, but she always says that clarity comes from engagement, not thought. So how many times do we stay in our heads thinking, okay, I'm going to do it this way, or maybe this is what I want, or planning and perfecting and, you know, and not taking action. And if we keep spinning it in our heads, we're not going to get the feedback to keep moving forward. And I'm going to say here, because I keep sharing things vulnerably throughout these 3 days with you guys, that I had this dream and this spark in my heart for like a year. I overthought about it before taking any little step forward. So it's completely normal too, if you for any reason feel that way. But that's why I wanted this whole day to be about action, to encourage you to take that next step so you don't waste a year like I did.
Yeah. And even then I would invite you, because it's, for us, it's so easy to look back and like, oh my gosh, I just wasted a whole year. I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I sprung to action sooner.
Mhm.
What if we allowed ourselves to make a positive spin of that and just trust that, hey, any timing there is a divine timing. For some reason, I was not ready then. Yes, the doors were open, but I was not ready to step through them. I needed this experience of an additional year to gain additional clarity, or sometimes life will push you in a corner, pull the rug from underneath you, grab you by the throat, and give you no other choices but to walk through the doors. But I think we spend so much time and energy dwelling over all the things that we have not done, or how we have failed, or how we are too late, that it takes us, again, I would offer to examine it as a pattern, because for myself, I have noticed I go big, all in at all times. I set goals for myself that I was like, yeah, the hell's gonna freeze before I can achieve that. It's like drives me. But on the other hand, it's my safety blanket, because what it allows me to do is shit all over myself after I fail. And it's like, see, I told you you can do it. I told you you're a failure. And it allows me to spin in my head for eternity until I'm like, no, actually, that's not serving me. It's not serving anybody, except it's feeding my ego, because my ego gets a boost from this big vision. And then also the subconscious pattern is like, you were going for too big. You should stay small and humble and don't brag about it. And, just be quiet there. You're too much anyway. So just shush. So yeah, I mean, taking aligned action, it's really a delicate dance, or a passionate tango, however you want to define it, between the internal game and the external progress. And I'd like to borrow a phrase from Guru Jagat, the late Guru Jagat. She's a Kundalini, she was a Kundalini yoga expert, for the lack of a better word. But one of the things she said that really stuck with me was, when you are on a path of faith, F-A-T-F, faith, yes. Don't ask me to spell. Yes, of course, there's going to be 2 steps forwards and 1 step backwards, and 2 step forward and 2 step backward. But when you intentionally get on a path of faith, belief, intention, and purpose, there's only 2 steps forward and 2 steps forward and 2 steps forward and 2 steps forward. And sometimes those 2 steps forward feel like quantum leaps. Sometimes it feels like a little detour around, and it might take a year to get around, but you're still moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. And I do feel like everything is meant to be the way it's supposed to for you in that moment. So, and like you're sharing about failure too, I don't even see anything as failure anymore, because failure is just feedback. It's just an opportunity for you to learn, to grow, take the lessons, and then you're gonna just be better on the next round. So there is no such thing. You can't fail, right? Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the time here, because like I said, we can go for days.
Yes, I know. If you want, if you have like something planned for us, like to create a plan and take this intentional action, or whatever, the exercise that you have planned for us, go ahead if you want to share that.
Definitely, I would love to. And I'm pretty sure what I'm going to share, it's not a rocket science, nor is it something you have never heard before. In fact, I would dare to say you have heard it so many times before, but I just hope it lands differently today, because sometimes, how often we hear the same thing over and over and over until that one time it's like, oh yeah, I get it now. So,
and the one thing about hearing things over and over too, and you read things and you listen to these talks and it all makes sense, and you're like, I know this, but a lot of times it's that action, like implement it, right? Exactly. For it to really get ingrained in you, and it does take action and repetition. So yes,
exactly. Well, first thing I would offer to anybody who's here, who's willing to do this, is just make peace with the fact that what you're out here to create most likely has not been done before. Because in a world that we're living right now, the old archaic ways of doing things, the old programs, the old structures, the old hierarchy, they're falling apart. So even established companies in a way are just startups having to reimagine, revision, redesign, recreate, rebuild things in a new way that will be sustainable in the new age that is coming, that is much less archaic than um, it used to be.
And
So
with the pandemic, sorry to interrupt you, but with the pandemic, I feel like we've all had to reinvent ourselves, right?
exactly, exactly. So it's perfectly okay if you feel wobbly and if you are looking around. Just like yesterday, my business partner and I interviewed somebody for a very specific role in our company. And the list of qualifications, for lack of a better word, she's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was crazy when I put this together as of who I am. And everybody was looking at me like, no one's needing this. And just hearing her say that, oh my gosh, there is somebody who needs it. I want you to take that and know that if it's true to your heart, then it doesn't matter what the external world is saying, because chances are that they're not going to give you the right feedback anyway, and that you are light years ahead of the masses. So just stick with what your heart is telling you. So in this case, yes, the awareness and the alignment with what is that you want. Be really clear with what is that you want, and be very discerning if this want is true to your heart and soul, or if it's fueled by ego and all these stories and programming that we have been indoctrinated in, especially as women. This is how you're supposed to look like. Be ambitious, but not too ambitious. Be out there, but not that loud, right? So be really clear. And then get clear about what needs to happen to see that vision through. If you and I were to meet in a year, in 2 years, in 10 years, and you were looking back, what would you tell me about the journey? And notice how many things on that list, what needs to happen. What are the things that really need to happen and are in your responsibility and light you up? What are the ones that are still your responsibility and that kind of drain you? What are the things that, yeah, they light you up, but they have no business being on that list anyway? And then you get to decide, if it fuels my soul, well, then it is a possibly positive thing anyway. But if it's on that list and it absolutely drains you and has no business to even be there, it's not going to move you forward, but perhaps it's comfortable. Perhaps it's something that everybody else is telling you what you should be doing. Perhaps it's simply checking off the boxes that everybody else has put in place for you. Well, can you give yourself permission to just let it go? And then last piece, and that is a big question, is what do you require? What kind of support do you require to see it through? And here it's so beautiful when we get into kind of we create the out of body experience in a way, not just one level, but a couple of levels up. And you can see yourself getting smaller and smaller as you're making the list of requirements, and your mind kicks in, is like, who am I to deserve this? Who am I to actually require this? I don't really need a massage every week. Why would I outsource this thing if I have 5 hours per day? I might as well just do it. I know how to do this thing. Or why would I have somebody come in and do the cooking and cleaning if I can do this, or my partner can help me? But it's such a beautiful insight into what are the things that are holding us back consciously, when we know on one hand what we require, but we're not giving it to ourselves. Now, when you have the list of what you require, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have the means to give this to yourself or all these resources that but at least now you have the clarity of what you are going to be calling in. And the beautiful thing about taking aligned action, I have learned the hard way, it's also just allowing the answers to come in, because the mind that creates this list of requirements, it's not always going to be the same one that can actually come up with the how solutions. So can you be okay with simply placing an order just like you would in a restaurant without now having to get off your table, away from your table, into the kitchen and follow the chef around. Did they put enough salt in there? Did they saute this enough? It's like, no, you place the order. Now you go back and you chat with the company at the table and you trust that it's going to be delivered exactly how you placed it. And that, to me personally, that was the biggest stretch, and I'm still working on that one.
Yeah. And it's so powerful what you're sharing about releasing what doesn't serve you. Because oftentimes we shared a little bit about what the unconscious mind is, and it's that autopilot mode that we are in. And most of our thoughts and actions, I think it's like 90%, like science has revealed more than 90% is unconscious, right?
And it was last year and the year before and the year before.
Yes. And so it's all these things that we do without consciously being aware of what's going on. It's, you know, breathing is one of them that obviously we require for survival, but we do a lot of things under this unconscious thought patterns too that we just have, you know, ingrained in us. And it really takes a moment to pause and really look at it. And what you're explaining, the exercise that you're giving, where, you know, you're writing everything down that doesn't no longer serve you. And in that writing process, it really helps you to slow down, right? Because if we just do it in our minds, the thoughts are just I'm sure everybody can relate to this. If your thoughts are like quick, they go one after the other, you go off on a tangent over here and like back, and they spin and they circle and all this. But when you put down pen to paper and write this list, it kind of slows down the process, and you start to identify what you can let go of. And maybe there's something that you don't like doing, but perhaps like if you ask yourself really in your heart, you want to do it. Like say taking care of a family member or certain things like that, right? That still are true to your heart, but then there will be a lot of things that you're like, no. And I remember one of my students actually, and this is something that I love about this work too, is like, we get to teach, but we're also students. Like everybody, we can all learn so much from everybody. And she shared something about making decisions. Like before she says yes, she just goes into her heart and is like, can I absolutely do this with all the love in my heart and like fully, yes or no? And then you start to discern the things that no, you know, and then it creates space for more of what you want to create in your life.
Absolutely. And another layer to that conversation is a much more pragmatic. And I know it's very relevant, especially right now when so many of us, you know, you and I, we're running businesses with kids. I have been at home with kids. Literally the pretty much the same week I found out I was pregnant with my oldest kid, I lost my job and I started a business. So it was raising both at the same time, simultaneously.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of juggling. There's a lot of shifts and transitions and transformations and routines that by the time you think you master it, it's turned upside down and you have to start again. And that is all a part of the process. And one of the things I know for myself is that I don't work in batching, you know, a couple of things in the same day. My business partner, she thrives in that. She's like, give me 7 sprints of 7 minutes and I will get things done in this 7x7 frame.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me. What works for me is to say, today I write. Tomorrow I will do coaching. The next day I will do admin stuff and bookkeeping and whatever needs to be done. The following day, this is going to be my zone. And then also what I do is I really tuned in my energy, and I came to realize that Mondays are my Fridays. Mondays are times when I just need to unwind from the weekend as a massive introvert from having everybody in the house. So I leave Mondays open for real the introspection, for visioning, for recalibrating my own energy, for setting myself up for the week. By the time Friday rolls around, it's like, I'm on fire. Now I can actually go out and meet people and network and do all the outreaches and all the fun stuff that moves the needle forward. So everybody's going to find your own dynamic. And with kids at home, mine are now in school, but when they were still at home, you know, it was different than it is now. It's the first time in my life that I actually have a 6-hour block uninterrupted. I have never had it before.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you're looking at that, just give yourself some grace. Um, take a schedule, colorful markers if you need to, block out the times in your schedule and tune into what is the rhythm that you operate in, what comes the most natural to you, and then work with that. And then for the things that like I should be doing this, but let me find something else, all you need is like 20 seconds of crazy bravery and 20 seconds of crazy determination to take the leap and just do the first step, and then everything else will follow.
Yes, absolutely. And it is, and I don't think it just happens to us moms, that feeling of lack of time. Like I get it a lot from my students. Like I really know that yoga, meditation, mindfulness, like it really supports me. And yet sometimes I fall back into the busyness of my life because of work and demands with family and relationships and social activities. And so it's not just moms. Obviously for us, sometimes I feel like it's a little hard. You have this tiny little person literally 24/7 with you. Right now she's upstairs with my mom and they're watching us live. So she's here with us. But if there's, because I know you also support people with like, mastering their time, right? And like that mental brilliance, like operating like under genius kind of aspect. And I know you're sharing a little bit about about that today with us, but just, we have so many responsibilities under us. So what would be like your best advice for, to all of us, I guess, because we all suffer from this, like prioritizing ourselves and the things that are most important to us? Because like what you shared about, it really requires a deeper connection to ourselves to start knowing what works for us. Like what works for your partner doesn't work for you. But yeah, if there's anything that comes to mind as far as supporting people in that, I know that's a big struggle for everybody.
Yeah, it certainly is, and there's no blanket statement that applies to everybody. But based on my experience, one of the things that is crucial is allowing yourself to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a hard no, and it's going to be like Sherry Salata calls it a beautiful no. Um, and here's what I mean. What we are creating here, oftentimes we are saying no to things like, oh my gosh, I'm on the phone right now, let me get back to you in a second. We shush our kids out of the room. Can we say no to ourselves for a moment in a way that, no, I'm saying no to answering this email and I'm gonna go spend time with the kids without obsessing about, oh my gosh, now I'm not working, I should be working, because now in between the two worlds, we're not present in any one of them. But what happens is like we're so focused on what we're building right now that's going to serve us 10 years from now that sometimes we forget that there is life happening right in front of our eyes that we completely dismiss. So there's the one part of that no. Second part of that no is a little bit more challenging. And I'm going to say something that might be really walking the really thin line, especially in the current climate, with the social change happening in the political debates. Saying no to environments, saying no to circles, saying no to people, saying no to activities that drain you, that are not aligned with your highest core values, is going to be just as crucial as saying no to things on your schedule that might be a distraction. And those are going to be the hard no's because they're not going to make sense to most people. But if you really are looking forward to, the life that you're out to create and your core values, and then you are expected to pigeonhole yourself and say, oh, I have to be nice, I have to go there because it's family and because it's my friends, but I can be accepted as long as I don't speak about the issues that are affecting you and people you care about. I personally couldn't do that. I released a ton of people from my life over the past couple of years. It was hard. I still find myself sometimes wondering, like, did I overreact? But then I take a look into my mission and take a look into my values and what I stand for and who I support. And that was one of the hardest no's, but also the most liberating no, to setting that boundary. Say, if I want to serve this and if I want to build what I'm building, there's no both sides, both ways, both whatever it is. I don't think that's the exact answer you were looking for.
No, I think it's super supportive, because that saying no is really important. And a lot of us struggle with that. We'll just put everybody else as a priority and say yes, because we have this super kind, loving heart and compassion, and we want to help and support everybody. And then we forget about ourselves. And I always like to tell people, like, the most important in your life is you. Like, of course, and I can say this, like, honestly, I would give my life for my child, right? But my child needs me. So, like, prioritizing myself isn't selfish. It's actually giving, because when I do, I'm the most loving, the most peaceful, the most patient, the most caring, all these good qualities for my children, for my husband, for my friends, for my family, for anybody that I encounter, right? How different are you when you're at peace and happy versus all stressed out and frazzled? And that saying no is a big part of it. And I think, to wrap it up, is like, if you have that deeper connection to yourself and you connect within, you can start to discern, okay, what are the things that I can start letting go of? And like you said, it could be people, but it's also things that you watch on TV. Like, if the news makes you super stressed out, just watch 5 minutes a day, get, up to date with what's happening, and then let it go. Like, all these things you can look at. So I encourage everybody to do that. And Sarah, I know you have a very special gift for all of us. So share with us a little bit about your gift. And Karen's going to drop it in the chat for everybody. And I want everybody to know you're here live. The link will be here, but it's also going to be sent to you via email, and it's up on our website. So yeah, tell us.
Good. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. And I don't know if you have time for any questions, but you know where to find me on social if you want to continue this discussion.
Yes.
So the free gift is kind of a dashboard dossier, if you want, that my business partner and I have developed. It's called the Energy Flow Plan. So what is so amazing about it, it is a very holistic approach to our typical to-do list. Because it not only it doesn't only allow you to say, okay, this is what's on the docket for this month or this quarter or this year, but it takes into the account lunar cycles. It takes into account the energetic flow. It takes into account what do you need physically, emotionally, spiritually to feel supported. And it really, we kind of recreated the to-do list. We've made it into a playlist because it just sounds a little bit easier. So the free gift is you get the templates, so you can create your own. You also get access to the actual transmissions and explanation when my business partner and I were actually creating our own for our own company, because it's the ancient wisdom, it's the traditional and holistic medicine, it's the tactical and strategic aspect, it's the mindset pieces, it's like conglomerate. And for the first, let's say 5 individuals who want to also book one-on-one call with me for about 30 minutes or so, 45, I'm gonna also leave that link up. Check my schedule so we can really go back to, who you are, what do you want to do, what gets to be done, and how you get to do it.
I love it. And I love the change of a to-do list to a playlist, because part of my intention with this too was, it can be hard going after what you really want, but the whole point is to be present here. All we have is this moment, and there is a way to enjoy it. I actually set the intention for this. This is my first time doing it. I'm super shy. You can't tell, but yes, I am. And I set the intention before this, like, I'm just going to enjoy it and have fun. And it actually has been. So I love the playlist instead of to-do list. Thank you so much, Sarah. We appreciate you so much sharing your wisdom and your time and your big heart with us. Thank you.
My pleasure.